Freak Radio. This is Jafric Radio.
Hello, hello, hello. A very good evening to you here from Tokyo, Japan, and good morning to our cherished listeners in Ghana and in all other parts of the world. A happy new year to you. It's been a while. We have not met since the year began, this new year began. And so a very good evening to you. Especially our cherished listeners, those that always tune in when Voice for Africa is on your dial. Today we have a very interesting topic, but let me remind you that Bayside Modeling Agency is always at our disposal to help in sponsoring this program. Please contact us on social media and any other social media platform, and you will not miss out. Today I have with me very learned people who will be helping me with this particular program. We have an important topic to discuss. But before I introduce to you the topic, or I let you know the topic, let me just introduce Dr. Smart. You know Dr. Smart Edward. Dr. Smart, if you're on the line, kindly give us a hi. How are you doing?
Good evening. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I don't think my viewers can hear you, can see you. So if
yeah, it's been like this since you guys resort to this vMix. I don't know what technically is the problem. So,
okay.
I'm here.
So the picture, the video cannot come. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, Dr. Smart is on the line, and he will be talking to us. He will be helping us in our discussions today. We also have Dr. Ashley. Pardon me if I don't mention the name well. Dr. Ashley. Yes. Doc, how are you doing? Yes, how are you doing? If you can hear me.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm doing okay. I spent a wonderful time in Nagoya during holidays, Christmas and New Year's Eve. Yeah, so I think I'm in good shape. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We've not met this year, but we have to arrange a meet. All right.
Yeah. All right. Of course.
Yes, and Mr. Nathan Zuge, I am not sure if he is around, but he will also join us very soon. I don't know, but he will join us. Mr. Nathan Zuge, he will also join the discussion as we move forward. Today, we have a very important topic that captures one of Africa's greatest problems or challenges. And before much ado, I would want us to just listen to a very short video which will guide our discussions today. If the technical team is hearing me, please let's have the video. Please let's listen to the video.
Crisis in a nutshell. Since 1996, over 6 million people have died in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, so that we, in the Western world, can benefit from its resources. Congo is extremely rich in gold, diamonds, copper, cobalt, tin, uranium, coltan, and many other precious minerals. Congo has 64% of the Earth's coltan, a precious mineral that is needed for our modern electronics like iPhones, iPads, computers, laptops, PlayStations, Xboxes, Nintendos, jet engines, inkjet printers, and the list goes on and on. In 1946, the Strategic Minerals Stockpiling Act was passed to obtain and stockpile cobalt. With the largest reserves of cobalt on the planet, Congo was targeted. Cobalt is a strategic and critical mineral that is essential for our aerospace, military, and defense industries. As the United States and the United Kingdom provide financial aid and military aid to countries such as Rwanda and Uganda, these neighboring countries plunder Congo's natural resources as the death toll rises. In 4 studies, the United Nations implicated multinational companies in sourcing coltan from Congo, stating that these companies serve as the engine of the conflict in the DRC. As the world benefits from Congo's riches, Congolese men, women, and children continue to be raped, tortured, starved, displaced, and killed. In 2010, a leaked United Nations report cited crimes of genocide may have been committed by the Rwandan troops. There is very little media coverage on what is actually happening in Congo. When Congo is covered by the media, it is often about rebel groups committing mass atrocities. What these reports do not cover are the funding, training, and the arming of these rebel groups by foreign governments. Nothing is ever mentioned about the Western-backed coups, wars, assassinations, or the involvement of foreign corporations in the looting of Congo. 48 women are raped every hour. Millions are displaced. Over 6 million dead. Half are children under the age of 5. What is happening in Congo is a silent holocaust.
This is Jafric Radio.
This is just a short video that I want you to watch. Now, let's understand that this program is not in place to castigate any country or any country in the West whatsoever. We just want to bring out certain truths to light and what we can do as Africans to get Africa on track, in that sense, put Africa on the map again and cause a massive revival of development across board. So this program is not to castigate anybody, but is to let us understand the challenges we are facing as Africans. Today, I'll do less talking because I have a lot of people that will be discussing with deep knowledge. Now, the question here, the topic is Africa really independent? We hear stories, not of only Congo and about coltan, whatever it is, but we hear stories of the infiltration and the kind of direct manipulations of other countries in Africa and how they have contributed to very poor negotiations on the African continent. So these things, in a way, kind of, they put you in a kind of a mess, and you cannot really open up in terms of taking the right decisions because it looks like you are handicapped and literally your hand is in the mouth of someone, and if you don't take care, you'll be bitten. Now, let's address this issue. Maybe Dr. Ashley, I want you to start. Is Africa really independent?
Okay, thank you, Mr. William Asiedu, once more for giving me this opportunity to talk about such a sensitive issue of our beautiful continent, Africa. Well, what I can say, when I look at the title, I found it very interesting. And for me, I look at the issue with both aspect lenses, has an open and has an open-ended question. If I have to answer straight, I mean, like a yes or no, I would say no. Definitely, Africa is not independent. But if it's open, well, I can be a bit, how to say, I can say politically, Africa is independent, but not economically. So, which makes Africa half independent? Let me give you the reasons. When I look at the Africa in general, um, Ghana got independent in 1957, and majority of African, at least in the sub-Saharan Africa, got independent in 1960. But unfortunately, there are many reasons to say that push me to say that Africa is not independent. First of all, the military presence. There is still a lot of military presence of the West in Africa. The currency is military presence and currency make Africa really not independent.
This is Jafric Radio.
Then you have the official development aid, the ODA. I don't want to give you figures. It's really striking. I mean, from the US, from Japan, from UK, from China. No need to give figures. Simple observation makes you to understand that Africa is not independent. Even when you look at the MDG, the Millennium Development Goals, before the current SDGs, they were meant for Africa because, well, I think Africa still has a lot in terms of catching up with the developed world. So, yeah, I think that's what I can say as a preliminary explanation of on the topic, whether or not Africa is independent. Yeah, that's the reason I can. So yeah, I would say no. If it's a strict, I mean, open-ended question, that it's not. Yeah, but politically, yeah, it's independent. So yeah, that's my.
Dr. Ashley, before I go to Dr. Smart, let me just give maybe press on with another question, because I really wanted to give you about 5 minutes in the introduction. But let me ask this question. Now, you mentioned that politically you think, of course, we are independent, but you see from time to time that the military presence of the West, I mean, in Africa, kind of manipulating certain things, and it is so clear that this is the infiltration from the West. So how do you still describe that politically we are independent? Of course, when we look at the democratic structure, we can say that, yeah, we got independence. But are we really independent, even politically? What do you have any explanation to that? Maybe in 2 minutes.
I think
I want to have 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, I would say politically it's much better because, for example, Ghana or my country, I mean, they organize every 5 years free and fair elections. But at least this is an aspect where there is little interference from the West. I mean, the democratic process is there. I mean, there is opposition, even if in some countries in Africa there is dictatorship in terms of the same family or the same names are still in power maybe for 20, 30 years. But there is little interference politically. It's not like the economy, because if you withdraw multinationals, Western multinationals from Africa, I think it's going to be a catastrophe. Look at what's happening in Ukraine. Well, Africa cannot feed itself. You see how some president, especially in West Africa, they went to see Mr. Putin, the president, to say that, well, this war is affecting the continent, but how can you imagine 60 years down the line, Africans still complain that, well, there is shortage of wheat, and other resources, while the continent's got the potential. So that's why I'm saying that economically it has been a disaster. And unfortunately, economy cannot be separate, cannot be it cannot be, how to say, it has to be associated with politics. So that's why I was saying that really, when we talk about independence, we have to look at both lenses, politics and also economics. So for me, if both justify the independence of a country, like Japan today, I mean, like France, those countries who lost maybe First or Second World War, what did they do? They said, I mean, countries like the US to withdraw the military base. I mean, they left without any issue. But today, Africa, in most part of the continent, there is still, I mean, that's present, and also the domination of multinational dictating the economy. So with others, I have to say that, well, unfortunately, my answer will be a strict no. Yeah.
Well,
politically,
thank you very much.
There is improvement.
Let me give Dr. Smart the opportunity to also share his views. Doc, I have 6 minutes for you. Is Africa really independent, Dr. Smart?
Okay. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you crystal clear.
All right. Well, anyway, good evening to everyone, and it's been a while.
Yeah,
and,
it's been a while.
It's great to be here in the beginning of the year 2023. So the topic is very interesting and also boring. It is boring because we have been eating this kind of for a long time, right? Aren't we tired? We are somehow tired. But it is also interesting because we have a privilege and another, let's say, the second opportunity to add more ingredients to make the same boring food somehow delicious. So that's make it interesting. So the question as to whether Africa is independent or not, let me put in these two ways. Sorry. So in 1884 to 1885, we remember there was something called the Berlin Conference.
Yeah.
Or it is also called, it's only accidentally, this topic, the video we watched earlier on was referring to Congo. But the Berlin Conference was also called the Congo Conference, in which led by Germany, the Europeans imperialists decided to partition Africa like a pizza and share among themselves. So that led to the demarcation of Africa as a continent to the European imperialists. However, we had, people like Kwame Nkrumah, Didier Du Bois, and all those Martin Luther fighting for liberation of Africa. So in that case, we somehow successfully drove away the presence of the European imperialists and their metropolis. But the point is this: in 1965, you remember what Nkrumah wrote. Many believe that he coined the neo-colonialism, where he believed that the neo-colonialism is going to be the last stage of imperialism in Africa. So in that case, yes, our leaders have sacrificed their lives and drove the physical presence of the Europeans from Africa. The point now is this: our own leaders have now been used as physical conduits to bring the same colonialism. However, this is neo-colonialism because the Europeans and the whites in general have succeeded in using our own as conduit to achieve the same goal in which they were in the physically present in Africa. So to some extent, yes, we are liberalized, but where we are now as a continent is because our own have been used as enemies against us. The point is no more the Europeans, but the point is our own people who have become betrayers. Otherwise, give you just one example. You know what? Why is it that an African leader will feel comfortable when he or she is sick? Will use the taxpayers' money, the street vendors who are suffering on the sun. They use their taxpayers' money and go to access first-class medical services in European countries. What is motivating this? What is sustaining some of these things? So the enemy of Africa now is not the West, but we ourselves. Controversially, that's what I can say for the 6 minutes you gave me. If you have any other questions and I have other minutes, you can proceed on. Thank you.
Yes, I
This
want
is
to.
Jafric Radio.
I want to ask a following question or a pressing question. Maybe I'll give you an extra 4 minutes to deal with that. But now, of course, all my panel members are saying we are not. Now, why are we not? Because why is it so? Let me put it this way. Why is it so? Where did we start from? How did it become so? And why are the leaders who are supposed to, of course, you fought for independence, and now, as you just explained, there is something like neo-colonialism. Why have we become so comfortable? And that is the part of our leaders. And come to the citizenry. Why have the citizens shut up? Because I know countries like, we just listened to a video on Kotan from Congo. But what about Ghana? In 2010, we got oil in our country, and we got the lead to start extracting oil. Now, ask yourself, what percentage do we have as people that produce oil? Who determines? Who does the negotiations? How come we are not able to manage our own affairs? As Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana, said, why is it that Africa has become so comfortable being manipulated and being thrown, just like a balloon, blown anywhere by the wind? Doc, so as you've mentioned, there is something new here called neo-colonialism. But these are my questions. These are the questions of my audience. Why is Africa still in this mess after civilization? Why? Maybe let me give you 5 minutes, because I think the question is involving. So let me give you 5 minutes before I come to Dr. Ashley.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you crystal clear.
Okay, the question is loaded, but my answer is very simple and straightforward. The first time the word development was mentioned was somewhere in the, I think, 1947, 48, thereabouts, after the Second World War, when America took over the world, and through Harry Truman, that's the first time the word development was used, right? So in that case, the word development itself, I'll come back, I'm laying for some preamble.
Of course.
Was just the coining of, or a kind of conceptualization of some part of the world who are yet to be civilized. So that have to do with Asia. That had to do with Southern America. That had to do with Africa. Because the whites have this, that, oh, it is Africans or other developing, so-called developing countries need to be civilized. They need to be developed to be logical. They need to be developed to be rational thinkers. So if you go into physics, I'm a social science student, but I do appreciate this, that our world is a closed system. And even in the Bible, the book of Ecclesiastes says that there is nothing new under the sun, isn't it? The Bible says that. So the world is a closed system, meaning that everything we need to develop scientifically or whatever, everything is here. All that we need is knowledge. Now back to the question as why we discovered oil and blah, 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 but we are still what. The point is this. When Kwame Nkrumah was asking for independence of Africa, the meaning of that independence is for Africans to be able to manage their own natural resources. As individual states, sovereign states, we have the inalienable rights, and we are sovereign states, and we have to manage our natural resources to maximize the welfare of the people of Africa. That is the point why Nkrumah and others were, fighting for independence. The independence is, the meaning is simple. That is it, right? So we are here because, one, Africa is suffering. So back to Nkrumah when he says the African identity, we have to go back. We have been reading about Plato, Aristotle, and so on. Nkrumah is the man of the millennium. Go back to what Nkrumah says and you understand why we are here. When he said Africa identity, is the kind of thinking that African is being diluted by two main foreign religions, Islamic religion and the Christian religion. So in the middle of this, we are in identity crisis. Because we are in identity crisis, we really don't have philosophy. Who are we? Right? Who are Africans? Who are we? The mother continent. Nobody has disputed the fact that Africa is the beginning of humanity. No one has disputed that. No scientific research has ever disputed that. But the point is, we have almost everything that nature could offer us to develop intellectually, material-wise, to be strong people, but we are still the most vulnerable continent in the world. What is the problem? The problem is simple. You must give education to people, and the content of the education should be contextualized within the framework of the natural resources that you are endowed with. So when you have diamond, you need to train people who have the engineering capacity to mine. If you have gold, you must train the people who have the intellectual capacity to mine it so that you don't necessarily have to go for those who have vested interest in the same resources. So the whole thing is simple. It is the failure of African it is aggregate failure of African imagination that is supported by we, the youth, and we are supporting that on the basis of the fact that the politicians are practicing what is known as demagogical approach. Demagogy is simply when politicians began to manipulate the people's emotions rather than speaking scientifically. So here is the case in Ghana. Politics is about tribe. Politics is about ethnic group, isn't it? Politics is not about idea. Politics is centered on ethnic affiliations and all that. But ethnicity and intellectualism has nothing to do. So all that we have to do, and the whites, they know that we are divided. Indeed, in the development economics, this is known as the social fractionalization. We are fractionalized because we are divided, and divided as we are divided along these lines.
This is Jafric Radio.
Anybody can infiltrate. As the Bible said, the house divided against itself can never stand. That is the point. So, bro, the point is very simple. We need revolution. We need revolution. France, how many people died? France, the French killed themselves, including their leaders, to bring France to where it is today. So sometimes the few people who are disturbing, it is better to cause mass barrier for them to ensure that the rest of the majority survive. I may sound very, unacceptable because of the platform we are, but the point is this: we need to handle those who are collapsing the continent without mercy. And I'm very sure that with the kind of explosive nature of the youth we are seeing today coming, very, very soon, based on theory, very soon, those who are the main architects of underdevelopment of Africa endogenously, because I'm not interested in external issue again. I'm interested in the very Africans who are causing the very problem and sustaining our suffering because they are gaining from our underdevelopment. If
This
they
is
solve
Jafric
our
Radio.
problem, they decided to solve the problem, they cannot maximize their wealth abnormally. Because they are gaining abnormally, that is why they have decided not to solve our problems. So I don't know if I stayed within the time.
Thank you very much.
That's
They
what
are
I have
getting
to
abnormally. Well, viewers, you are still on Jafric Radio, and this program is called Voice for Africa. We speak on issues about Africa, and we bring panel members in who are well endowed in terms of knowledge to discuss issues. And today we've been discussing all this while, is Africa really independent? Dr. Ashley, the same question to you, but can you focus on why the citizens have shut up, if I should put it that way, to the extent that they've not been able to voice out, even though they know that even though they have independence, and in paper or on paper there is independence. However, I mean, obviously you can see that you are being manipulated, but citizens are quiet. Civil societies are quiet, businessmen are quiet, and senior citizens and members are quiet. Across Africa, Doc, what is happening?
I don't think everyone is quiet. I think in Africa we have a vibrant civil society. Civil society organizations are dynamic in Africa. But the reality is less people are educated in Africa. So as a result, people are being manipulated. And usually, if it's not the case, the government resort to brutality, to violence, to keep those people, demonstrators, at bay, because this is how unfortunately, this is how it works in Africa. And I think to come back to the current problems we are having in Africa, I think Dr. Smart rightly pointed out, some elements which I really find critical. The ethnic, the religion, the spirituality. But adding to that, for me, I can group all this under the lack of vision. Because the people like our forefathers, like Julius Nyerere or Kwame Nkrumah, their vision was quite clear. And if Africans, if they are stuck to that vision, I think we will be far by now. Unfortunately, that developmental path that was set by our forefathers didn't get any positive response. How can you imagine that since 1963, since the Organization of African Union, in 2013, 50 years, they celebrated, I mean, the how to say, the vision of that continental project. And without proper assessment, they decided, well, in 2063, this is the Africa we want, another project, political project. The Africa we want, that Africa we want, it's a developed Africa. Well, but how do you achieve that development? I mean, African is always short-term, never long-term. So the same situation will occur, I mean, in 20, 25 years. So I think African leaders lack vision. There is no vision since the AU. I mean, the pace, the economic or political, how to say, agenda is always dictated by the West. For example, the structural adjustment program of the 1980s, what happened? It was a failure, complete failure. And then African people, they didn't learn from that. Nothing happened. And now the agenda of the Millennium Development came that was actually meant for African. And now we are talking about the Sustainable Development Goals. So Africans, they want to be eternal followers. They don't want to create their vision of development. So all these elements, the spirituality, the religion, the ethnicity, we talk about one show. We talk about the books, having the books in our languages. So Africans, I think the idea of development or being independent, it's a dream, still a dream, more than 6 years after the independence. So yeah, there is no vision, unfortunately. And in response to your question, no, I wouldn't say that where everyone is kind of I mean, the civil society is silenced by the political power because they have the army. Usually the army in Africa, they are not really educated. So yeah, and all this is not really conducive to an environment where we can make sure prosperity or independence will be guaranteed. Yeah, so that's what I can say.
Well, thank you very much. This program is almost just an hour program, very loaded, but we have limited time. But before I ask you the next questions, I think that let me read this comment coming from our listeners. Cornelius Appiah says that the reality is that no African country is fully free or independent. All of them are still being destabilized and manipulated so that their former European colonialism can still make profit. This type of colonization is called the neo-colonization. Hannah Wintema is saying, we need a revolution. The citizens aren't quiet. The citizens aren't quiet. The fact is that the leaders think the citizens are just ranting, making noise. Well, this from our listeners and our viewers. The question we want to look at is, look at a scenario where you are running around someone and asking him for grants and for loans that you cannot pay. Isn't it fair that these Europeans come back and manipulate your dealings in your country? Because of course, if you are running around and chasing me for loans and for grants you cannot pay, then don't I have the authority to manipulate your affairs or interfere in your affairs? Don't you think it's a right cause? Or are we just being selfish as Africans and not looking at the other side of the story, where our people or our leaders consistently go and beg, literally, for grants, for loans, for help, whilst they have every natural resource there, don't you think that it is just it's just natural that people will manipulate you if they are taking care of you or they are giving you money? Because that's what another school of thought thinks. Dr. Smart, are you there?
It seems that we lost him.
This is Jafric Radio.
And let's take it from you, Dr. Ashley. Did you get my question?
Well, I think.
Can you hear me?
Oh yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, he's there. Okay.
Well, you know what? I personally want to, in my worldview, I believe in something called causation, right? The essence of science is to establish the relationship between variables, isn't it? That's the essence of science, right? So, where we are now, some of us, we were not privileged to be born into the political class, the business class. I was born into the farm. I belong to the lowest of the pyramid when it comes to social class or economic class. But I promised myself some 20 years ago that whatever it is, I'll pay the price to become what I want to be. That is at the individual level. If you bring it at the macro level, let's go to China. China, as a big country, suffered humiliation because of Japan annexation. Chinese were more than Japanese, but they suffered the humiliation and embarrassment being colonized by Japan. On the basis of that, Chinese development, for example, had the psychological element. The psychological element of Chinese development is to do away with a century of embarrassment in which Japan took control over them. Today, where is China? Go to the data. You see, China is the second leading economy in the world. Right?
Yeah.
So that is the vision. We cannot continue looking at the external issues. We must look in what is the word? Look inward. What is the problem? By nature, human beings, we are wired in a way to look at events, problems from external perspective. It takes another intelligent level to look at problem within, and why we think we should look at what we are facing now from within. That is the endogenous aspect of development. We must look within. What's wrong with us? Let's go to Ghana. Ghana, you and I understand that when you go to hospitals, one of the ways of measuring development, for example, is life expectancy, education, right? And then from the quantitative perspective, we look at the income per capita, isn't it? If you look at the dimension of a human development index, you understand this, right? All of us understand this, right? Now, the point is this. Every year, countries are ranked based on certain indices. For example, you look at doctor-patient ratio, nurse-patient ratio. You look at issue of how many population have access to electricity, clean water and other things, right? This is not something that the West, the colonial what, they have to dictate to us. It is us. We cannot continue blaming these guys. We have to take our own destiny. Independence is not given. The West will be very, very happy to see Africa be what it is. The African is always considered a continent with paradoxes. It is a continent with paradoxes. The paradoxes are so many, right? We have, even presently, we have more than 30% of energy resources. But come to Africa. Africa is the continent, especially the sub-Saharan Africa, is the region with the lowest access to electricity and clean energy cooking facilities and technologies. That's one of the paradoxes. What explains this? This is not something that is designed by anybody in America, Britain or what. It is the failure of aggregate imagination. When you have a country like Ghana where women going to hospital to give birth, my goodness, some have to wait until another woman who had delivered have to be discharged so that she will be replaced. We understand this. It is called in Ghana as no birth syndrome. We have this, right? We know. But we have a regime in which the president says that he is dedicating large sum of our limited income to the building of cathedral. How can we? We should be ready to describe ourselves as being stupid. Excuse my language. We are stupid in the sense that the country is so good for any leader to come out of this sense, where buildings that were constructed less than 6 years, a president had to demolish all those buildings in the name of construction of National Cathedral. If the white say that we are stupid, won't you appreciate it? They are even so kind to us. I think they are so kind to us because Bob Marley said, in the midst of flood, the food is still tasty. Bob Marley has an African region, isn't it? So he said, in the midst of flood, the food is still tasty. So we are swimming in the pool of resources, but we are considered as the poorest regions of the world. While Nkrumah said, Africa is not a poor continent, but the people are poor. Have we interrogated that? We only look at those things, right? When we hear some of these things, we have no motivation to go into the philosophical underpinning of what comes, because the man spoke with the energy. We have to understand the virtue with which the man used those words. But we are so comfortable with reading about Aristotle and all those things, right? But we have the guys who are ready to sacrifice their life. They did by putting their life.
This is Jafric Radio.
To save the continent. What we have to do is that we need revolution. That has to do revolution politically, revolution mentally, revolution spiritually. And later, the spiritual aspect is even more dangerous. When most of us as Africans, for example, the Christian fraternity, we go to church, how many hours shouting and gyrating, in the end, how many hours we spend in the church? What is the relationship between spending more hours in the church and economic growth and development? Has it been established? It is only a counterproductive when it comes to productivity analysis. It's useless. It's useless. I know what I'm saying. Somebody somewhere will just, bring this message again that I hate Christians. You are not Christian more than me. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist church, and my church is like a school. It's a practical aspect of learning science and religion. You understand? So the point is very simple. Let us stop this kind of discussion whereby we are focusing on the external issue, the West, and tackle the issue from the root, who we are, why we have no focus. Remember Lee Kuan Yew, the Singapore model. We, in the 1960s, we Africans were better off than the Asians. If you take the historical statistics, you realize that it is only in the 80s that Africa started declining in terms of development. We have to question why the graph changed in the 80s, where Africa, the leading continent, when you compare with Asia, Africa now became the less, and what do you call it? Asia has overtaken, Africa. We need to question that structural break, what brought about the structural break, and how we should tackle it. Let's concentrate less on the external issues, in my view, and let's concentrate on our leadership and tackle everything pragmatically. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Doc. Our time is almost up, and we need to wrap up. But Dr. Ashley, let me allow you some 2 minutes to wrap up. I think that Dr. Smart has brought something very, very critical. We have to concentrate, we have to leave the West, leave the other people, and let's concentrate on ourselves and look at how we can really, really, really be independent. But Dr. Ashley, please kindly finalize. You'll be given opportunity to speak more in our next meeting. That's the next fortnight. But can you please summarize everything, and let's get out from here.
Thank you so much once more. I think in terms of the solutions, because we're also here to provide solution, and some of the aspects have already been evoked, touched on by Dr. Smart. I think we have a body, a continental body. We have the African Union. We don't have to think state by state, because look at the United States of America, look at the European Union. This is how Africa should think. We have African Union is there to really give the roadmap, and if they can respect what is written in terms of the policies, the mission and vision, I think, well, Africa can really achieve its independence and development. Because look at what happened in Libya, for example, in 2011, when one of the best presidents ever in the continent, in my opinion, was ousted by the West, by the NATO. Look at what happened. Is there any African Union, really? You wonder. So if we have a strong African Union, there is a potential for Africa to reach, there is a possibility, for Africa to reach its potential. So I think for me, the key right now is really to have a strong African Union that is not, that is a kind of spare of economic dependence from the West. Because when I look at one of the main funders of the union, or the economic, donors, they come from the West. So I think that we need a very strong African Union to really move forward the agenda of independence. So that's what I can say in terms of providing solutions. Yeah, thank you.
Well, in 1 minute, let's run up because our time is up. Dr. Smart, 1 minute. Let's go.
All right. So there's not much to say, just to say Happy New Year to all ourselves and our friends. And the issue of, we are in a foreign country, right? You know how it feels, right? When you are in the midst of these other nationals, and psychologically, everybody sees, oh, these are guys coming from the poorest regions in the world. I was scandalized, and I had no choice but to respond with such a force to a Filipina, who said that, oh, I've heard that Africans don't have water to drink. And I said, what the heck are you talking about? Africa has 54 countries. Africa is not a country. Africa is a continent with 54 countries. We constitute about almost 1.4 billion of the global population. What are you talking about? Based on what data? But the point is this kind of thing, devalue us. It reduces our self-esteem. It reduces I'm talking about Philippines as an example. Look at Philippines. The Philippines is one of the poorest regions in Asia here, but they also don't respect us. Take a country like Nepal, Bangladesh. Look at all those, Myanmar. Okay, Myanmar. Of course, even per capita health expenditure, okay, in Ghana is far higher than that of Myanmar. But somebody coming from Myanmar is looking at you coming from Africa as inferior, just because we have failed to put things in order. I'm not saying that the external forces are not working, but you know what? No matter how the external forces are working against us, if we do not welcome them, by this time, the continent would have been somewhere. A critical example, for example, is when a president of a country that is being swallowed by death is moving with the world's most luxurious aircraft and wasting the people's money. And Ghana is just next to Sri Lanka. This is where we find ourselves. So we need to be pragmatic. That's all, bro. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. Dr. Ashley, any final words? Let's go.
Well, no, just to greet the audience, the listeners. As always, it's an opportunity when we can really wish all the best to our continent. You see, it's really frustrating to see that years after years, there are always, there is little improvement of our continent. It's really frustrating to come to Japan to study, to go to the US, to Europe. Well, we have potential. And I think 60 years is quite a lot, because when you look at the countries like Singapore, Korea, Hong Kong, the four dragons, they developed out of, maybe 25 to 30 years. So I think, I told the African Union Development Agency, where they were here after the TICAD conference last year, they invited us, some JICA scholar. I talked to them straight to say that, that's agenda of 2063, for me, it's like utopia, because 2013 and 2024, 10 years now, can you really make a kind of assessment? Because an assessment is always needed. That's what I told them. They said, as young African, I'm being impatient. It's not a matter of being impatient. It's a matter of we want to witness development, not our kids. Our generation, we want to see the development in the continent. So I think there is a matter of urgency. And so thank you so much for the opportunity we are being given each and every time to come and speak about things that matter to us, or the continent. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Clement Esel said, we can't decide because we depend on the Western world. And Cornelius appears it's just unfortunate, and I don't understand why, because with all the raw materials, oil, minerals, resources, we do not have technology to process it, and so they can manipulate leadership. I want to say a very thank you to my panel members and my listeners for this opportunity. I want to thank the technical team, the CEO, for this topic. Next 2 weeks, we'll bring you another edition of Voice for Africa. Please stay tuned, and all the best. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
not start this fire, but we burn now.
This is Jafric Radio.
They were told many years ago that their country is free, but they didn't understand that it's not real. They never knew it was a Mickey Mouse freedom, yeah. Mickey Mouse freedom, yeah. I'm telling you, it's a Mickey Mouse freedom, yeah. Mickey Mouse freedom, yeah. Oh, I tell you, it's a Mickey Mouse freedom, yeah. Mickey Mouse freedom, yeah.
You are watching Jafric Radio live. You are watching Jafric Radio live. You are watching Jafric Radio live.
You are watching Jafric Radio. I am Abdullah from Ethiopia.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Namiko et vous regardez Jafric Radio.
Ẹ káàárọ̀, ẹ káàsán, ẹ káalẹ́. Orúkọ tèmi ni Ọmọdọ́lá Oyèyẹmí, ọmọ bíbí ìlú Ìbàdàn. Jafric Radio lẹ ń wò yìí o, ẹ múra sí i, ṣe púpọ̀.
This is Jafric. This is Jafric Radio. This is Jafric Radio. This is Jafric Radio. This is Jafric Radio. This is Jafric Radio.